Super Mario RPG Legend of the Seven Stars was released for the Super Nintendo in 1996. The game was developed by Square, which had already released a number of critically acclaimed role-playing games at that point. The game starts as a standard Bowser kidnaps Peach storyline, with Mario storming the castle to rescue her. From there, though, things get rather chaotic for a Mario game, with Mario partying up with two original characters, Mallow and Geno, and later joining forces with Peach, here called Princess Toadstool, and even Bowser himself, in an effort to gather up star pieces and defeat an evil robotic blacksmith king named Smithy. Early in the game, Mario and Mallow enter Rose Town, which is under attack by the villain Bowier's paralyzing arrows. Mario and Mallow head to the local inn for shelter, where they meet the child Gaz, who is playing with dolls of Mario, Toadstool, Bowser, and new character Geno. After accidentally getting knocked out by the Geno doll, Mario rests at the inn, and while he is asleep, the Geno doll comes to life and walks into the nearby forest maze. Mario and Mallow then head there as well, following the doll's footsteps and eventually joining forces to defeat Bowyer. I had previously ranked my favorite tracks from the Mario series, but for some reason, this one that plays in the forest maze, Beware the Forest's Mushrooms, totally slipped my mind. In actuality, it is one of my absolute favorites for its mysterious yet still fun nature, which perfectly fits a forest maze in a game suitable for kids. But how does this music achieve that? I would say that Beware the Forest's Mushrooms is a tonal piece of music, meaning it has a clear structure of chords and a sense of tension and release depending on which chords happen where, but it dips into modal territory at times. We went into modal music a bit in a past analysis of the Lost Woods music from The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time, but basically the concept of modal music originated way back in ancient church music, and was more about the individual tones rather than chords. Funny how two pieces of music for forest areas both utilize modes. Hopefully by the end of this, you'll have a sense of why this might be. There are three main versions of the minor scale in music: natural minor, harmonic minor, and melodic minor. The differences occur in the 6th and 7th scale degrees, or notes in the scale. But actually, Beware the Forest's Mushrooms does not start out using any of these scales. This piece starts in the C-sharp Dorian mode. We know we are in this mode and not in any kind of C-sharp minor, because in this first section, B is natural and A is sharp, unlike any of the C-sharp minor scales. The result of this is that each outlined chord in this section besides C-sharp, the chord of our home tone, and the last chord of this section, the 5 chord, is major. So we start off with a slightly unsettling minor chord, but with a light and bouncy character in the melody line. Following that, each chord of this opening section, which we will call A1, besides the last chord, is major. So it's a strange forest, and it sets that tone with its minor tonality, but it's a Mario forest, so it's made a bit quirky with the use of the Dorian mode and the avoidance of other minor chords. Additionally, the melody is very bouncy, and it uses trills here and there, so it feels a bit more strange than it does scary. The next section follows the same exact harmonic pattern, so we can call it section A2. Another voice takes over the melody, and the original melody voice joins the melody's rhythm to provide some nice counterpoint. But that's the only big difference. It basically just doubles down on the quirky nature of section A1. Now we get to something brand new, so we will label this section B. Section B uses C-sharp natural minor for the first time so far. It consists of the melody descending slowly but surely, along with another voice, a plucky bass line, and this repeated pattern that changes slightly when the harmonies change. This pattern is actually really interesting. We'll come back to it in a bit. Anyway, we start with a C# minor chord, but then head over to a G# fully diminished 7 chord, which makes no real sense in our current key, C# minor. This is actually where we switch keys. This chord belongs to the key of F# minor, and this key is confirmed later because every other chord in this section fits into this key, and the next section starts on an F# minor chord. This transition sounds so smooth because to get from the C# minor chord we started section B on to the G# fully diminished 7 chord, you just need to change a few notes either by half step or a whole step, and they already share the G# note, so that doesn't need to change at all. So there are literally no notes that have to leap or go over a whole step to get to the next chord. Before we head over to the next section though, let's go back to the repeated figure. Check this out. Every first note of each iteration of this repeated pattern is a non-harmonic tone, or a tone that does not actually belong to the chord happening at a given time. It's a really subtle effect, but starting each beat off with this clashy little note that doesn't really belong adds to that mysterious forest vibe. In this forest, if you do not follow Gino's footsteps, you can easily get lost. Little effects like this in the music represent the maze format in a musical way. So now let's go to the next section, which I'll call A'. It's actually the same thing as our previous A1 section, but in F# Dorian instead. Also, the last chord of this section, the 5 chord, is made major by a new harmony line, using the notes of harmonic minor. This will prepare us for the ending of this piece, which is very major as we'll see. Now we have A'2. This section starts the same way, but actually switches the melody up a bit and uses a different structure of chords. The second to last chord of this section is a major 5 chord, which we had before, but then as our final chord, we actually have a major 1 chord for the first time. This uses what is called a Picardy third, an old music technique that takes a minor 1 chord and makes it major at the end of a piece. And indeed, this is the end. Or it would be if this weren't video game music. Instead, we loop right back to the beginning. This transition is smooth too, because going from the F# major chord to the C# minor chord only requires changing notes by a whole step, and they both share the C# note. So even though the keys change, the music remains effective for a looping piece to be played in the background because of these smooth transitions. And the music always sticks to that quirky, mysterious nature without becoming something scary. This applies to the forest maze because, well, it's a Mario maze. It's mysterious, you can go the wrong way, there are strange enemies including some bow and arrow man, and you're following a doll that just came to life. Speaking of, pretty much everything we talked about can be applied to the character of Gino too. Beware the Forest's mushrooms almost serves as a theme for Gino, even being played during the 2 reveals of his Mii costume in the Super Smash Bros. Games. Remember, at this point in the story, nobody has any idea how this doll that a child was just playing with became sentient and walked over to a forest. But the player is given the sense that this is a good character. We just don't learn much about him until later. So at this point, players will likely see Gino like they see the forest maze. Mysterious yet lighthearted and quirky. And hey, Gino has not really made an appearance since this game, besides in Mii costume form and a little cameo in the first Mario and Luigi game. So he still remains a bit of a mysterious, quirky figure at the time of this recording. Who knows, maybe when you're watching this, he'll have finally made his way into Smash as a full fighter. Let me know in the comments if we're living in this magical future, and I'll catch you next time. Thanks for watching.